Hello, everyone. My name is Parul Goyal, and I'm delighted to do this masterclass about growing into product leadership. Now, as a product manager, as a product owner, several of you might have your eyes set on a product leadership role that you want to grow into and get into someday. So, I am going to talk about how to think about this transition and some of the skills you will need not only to get into this role, but also to succeed in it. I will also talk about how you can start developing these skills in whatever role you are in today. But I thought I start my talk by telling you a little bit about my own career journey, especially in product. So I have a educational background in computer science. My degree is in computer science, but I spent several years as a business analyst in consulting. And after having done that, that's when I transitioned into product management. And even though there was a significant overlap in day to day activities of a business analyst and a product manager, it took me a good 2 years to really understand what my role was. What was I doing? Like, what was expected of me as a product manager? Right. So it took me about 2 years to really understand my role. Then I worked on getting better at it. Right. And then, so at this time, I was at PayPal, and then I transitioned into another role within PayPal, right? And that's when I would say I really grew into my role, right? I felt more grounded. I finally understood that as a product manager, I wasn't just responsible for building the product. I was responsible for its success. Like I noticed this mindset shift that really then helped me transition into a product leadership role, right? I just felt more confident. I felt more grounded in my role. And today I'm a director of product at Indeed, where my team owns the billing and checkout platform that powers all of our products. So, what exactly do I mean by a product leadership role? Now, let me start by saying that all product managers need to be leaders to succeed. We need to be able to set the vision, sell that vision, bring people along, influence, inspire, right? So, all product managers, because of the role they are in, are leaders. But as you grow in your career, at some point, you transition from product manager to a product leader. And there might be a few things that are indicative that you have made this transition. It could be your title, right? For example, director of product, VP of product usually indicate you are in a product leadership position. It could be that you are a people manager, although by no means is that necessary. There are many people managers who are not product leaders, and vice versa. And I think the most consistent indicator that you are in a product leadership role is the impact you have, right? Um, you think about changing the business, growing the business rather than just the product, and the scope that you manage. Right? But what I want you to take away is there is no line set in stone that one day you are a product manager and then one day you are a product leader. In terms of growth of skills, in terms of growth of scope, it does happen over time. Also, each company defines product leadership, or at what point you become a product leader, slightly differently. So, what does it take to then grow into a product leadership role? In my experience, there are three things that come into play. One is experience. Right? To be a product leader, you need to have a few years of experience. You need to have a track record that shows you have done the role, you have succeeded in it, you can continue to do the same things at a larger scale. Now, uh, of course, if you are doing your own startup, you can become a chief product officer in your first job. But if you are looking to join another company as a product leader, then they would look for a few years of experience. If you're looking to join larger companies, they will probably look for more years of experience. The second thing that comes into play is opportunity. Now, you might say, I am ready to be a product leader, but you need an opportunity that's looking for a product leader, right? And the third thing you need are skills that demonstrate that you are ready for this role, right? Skills that will make you successful once you get into that role. And it's the third one, the skills that I'm going to focus on for the rest of the masterclass. And in my experience, there are about 5 or 6 skills that are really essential to succeed as a product leader. So those are the 5 I'm going to focus on: managing a broader scope, inspiring and influencing, making decisions, dealing with ambiguity, and finally, thought leadership. One of the advantages of becoming a product leader is you can have a bigger impact. And this is because now you get to manage a broader scope than you were doing as a product manager. But learning to manage a broader scope is something that requires time, that requires effort. It is an important skill, and it's also a difficult one to learn because it requires some unlearning on our part. Think of yourself when you were, or if you are an individual contributor, think of what makes you succeed today. Right? What makes you succeed is being hands on, being in details, doing things yourself. But if you want to succeed in managing a broader scope, this mindset has to change, right? Because you're not going to be able to do everything yourself. So you have to change your attitude. You have to change how you see your role. You have to change how you see yourself and the value you bring. So you have to think of yourself as an enabler rather than a doer. And this was something that I really struggled with. In my early days as a product leader, I felt really overwhelmed. I was like, there is so much in front of me. How am I going to do it? And so I would constantly push back on my manager, saying, no, I don't have time. Like, I don't, really can't take on any more of these priorities you expect me to follow up on. And it took me some time and, to be honest, some coaching from my manager to understand, wait, when she assigns me something, it's not that she's asking me to do it. She just wants me to make sure it gets done. And there is a difference. So over time, I have learned to do 3 things that I think are important when you're managing a broader scope. The first one is strategic planning, right? So you have to just accept that you will have more than you can do yourself. So you need to get into the planning mode where you look at everything in front of you and you make 2 decisions. Number one, what is important versus not, right? So then you have a very clear sense of priority. If it's going to set you up and your product for success in future, it's investing in future. If it's something urgent that if you don't pay attention to, it will blow up, those are the things that you are going to focus on. Noise, you can either decide to let go or maybe delegate. Right? Now, even for things that are important and urgent, you still have to decide, is this something that you are going to do versus you are going to delegate? Right? And the better you get at making these decisions, the more sense of control you will feel. So if to get into the rhythm of managing a broader scope, you need some strategic planning time, right? Have those processes in place where you are evaluating and making some of these decisions. I highly recommend doing at least weekly and daily planning so that you have a pretty good sense of what's going on, how you are spending your time. The second thing that will help you succeed is to delegate, and delegate well, right? Be comfortable assigning work to other people, to your direct reports, as well as to other cross functional teams. And key here is to delegate well, right? Clearly define what's the goal, what role are you expecting them to play, what's the deliverable, when are you expecting it back by. I'll tell you, in my when I was a consultant, I had this junior BA who joined my team, and I asked him to do a functional spec, right? And it was due in a week or so. So and he took quite a bit of time to do it. And when he got it back to me, it was not what was expected. So pretty much sat overnight and redid it so that we could still meet our timeline. And then I got some coaching from my manager at the time, who said that, if you wanted it done right, you should have spent more time upfront telling him what to do, maybe giving him a template. Right? So even if you spend 5 more minutes delegating today, you might get much better results. You might save yourself a lot of time. Right? And the third thing is follow up. If you delegate something, if you send an email, if you attended a meeting where there were action items assigned, did these things happen? Right? Follow up. Sometimes a 2 minutes email following up could be the difference between whether it got done or whether it did not get done. Right? So it keeps other people accountable. It also builds a culture of accountability. So, those are my 3 tips for managing a broader scope. Number one is do some strategic planning around how you will spend your time, delegate and delegate well. And number three is follow up. Now, even if you're not a product leader today, you can start doing these things in your role right now, right? All product managers usually have more on their plate than they can manage. So do this weekly planning, do this daily planning. Try to figure out what you will focus on versus what you will let go. Are there things you can delegate maybe to cross functional PMs? Maybe your engineering manager can help you with some of the things that you're doing right now, right? Number two is delegate, and delegate well, like I talked about. And finally, follow up. Even in your team, as people take on action items, make sure they get done. I would also tell you, follow through. If you commit to an action item, make sure you get it done, because then you are creating the culture by accountability, and also you're demonstrating to your leadership that you are somebody who is reliable. The second skill we need to develop is the one to be able to inspire and influence people. Right? And this is one we have all heard of. In fact, when I talked about managing broader scope, it became clear that we need other people to be a part of our journey to succeed. It's the people we delegate to, right? And in general, to succeed in a product manager role, even we need the ability to bring others along, to influence them, to persuade them. Right? As a product leader, this will continue. In fact, this will become a bigger part of your role. And you will be inspiring and influencing different groups of people. For one, you will still have to inspire and influence your own team, people who directly report to you. Because just because you are their manager, you are their boss, doesn't mean they will follow you. You still have to figure out, what really inspires them, what really excites them, and use those things to bring them along. You will have to influence and inspire your peers, your engineering manager, your designer, your cross-functional teams, other product managers, right, to obtain their buy-in, for them to be able to support your priorities and your timelines. And finally, you will have to inspire and influence above the chain to get the support you need, to get the support for your priorities, to get help when you are escalating. Right? So it is a really important skill. And to be honest, one we can talk about for weeks and days, because there is a lot of material out there already about this, right? This is a pretty well established topic. But I did want to share with you some strategies that I have learned from this other leader, from a very senior leader who I observed did this really well. He was able to deliver on large, complex initiatives by somehow mobilizing people and teams across the company. Right? So, by talking to him, by observing him, these are some of the tools I added to my own tool set. So, number one is to really build strong, meaningful relationships. right? And this is really the cornerstone of being able to bring people along is you have to get to know them, you have to build trust. Now here two things are important. Number one is you have to really build relationships before you need people, right? If the first time you meet them you're asking them for something, it's too late. I mean, you still have to do what you have to do, but ideally you have built this relationship in advance. The second thing is a lot of us think of a relationship building as transactional, right? Oh, who's the person who can benefit me? Let me go establish a relationship with them. And this transactional mindset would really hurt you, right? Get to know people as person and base that relationship on not what they can do for you, but what you can do for them, right? So that's number one. You have to build relationships. The second one is you have to be a leader with a vision that inspires others. This is also something that has been really talked about quite a bit. It's a cliche at this point, but I can tell you a leader with a vision is still a rarity, right? So if you become one, you will be able to differentiate yourself. The thing is, it doesn't have to be your own vision, right? If you're a senior leader, you can come up with your own vision. Sometimes you're just executing on your leadership's vision, and that is fine too, but advocate for it like it's your own vision, right? Really get behind something, stand for something. So that's number two. And number three is going to be create momentum, create some buzz around your product or your project, create a positive energy around it. I have used this analogy before. Do you want to get on a plane which is still on the runway, or would you have rather been on a plane which is already taking off? I'm guessing it's the latter. So make your product or project the plane that's like already taken off, right? Talk about it positively, be enthusiastic about it, get buy-in from important stakeholders that inspire confidence and will help others come on to your idea. Okay. And so what can you do today? As I mentioned, if you are in a product specific role, product owner, product manager, senior product manager, you need to be able to inspire and influence today. So, all of these strategies that I have mentioned, you can start doing them right now. Right? Figure out who are the key people to your journey in your project, in your career, in general to learn from, and start building those relationships today. And again, base them on what you can do for them rather than what you will get out of that relationship. The second thing I would say is start creating this positive energy around your initiative or your project, right? Talk about it positively whenever you have a meeting with, for example, a new stakeholder. Talk about why is this work important, what is the long term vision for it. Even if you're talking about a small capability, get in the habit of associating it or building or plugging it with something bigger, a bigger vision that this is going to contribute towards, because eventually that's what's going to inspire people. So you don't have to wait to become a product leader. You can really, there are tons of opportunities in front of you today where you can start inspiring and influencing. The third skill I want to talk about is being able to deal with ambiguity. This is one of the biggest changes you will experience as you go from product manager to product leader. And this is because early in our career, when we are mid-career, early or mid-career, the problems we get handed over to solve are pretty well defined, right? Or even sometimes even the solutions can be very well defined, like implement this capability or decide between A, B, and C, or here are the goals, come up with a roadmap to support that goal. But as we grow in our career, as we become a product leader, we are responsible for defining the problem statement, right? Or the problem statement might be so ambiguous that the next steps are not quite clear. Right? And usually, when there is ambiguity, there is stress, there is fear of being wrong, because this is like you are choosing a direction to go into while it's foggy, while you can't really see where the path leads to, right? So the tendency is to wait until the fog lifts, like wait until I have more information. Okay. So, a few years ago, I got assigned to this initiative as a product manager, which already had three other product managers. And my role wasn't quite clear. Like, what was I supposed to do? So I also wanted to wait. I was like, oh, let me wait and see what others do, where's the need, and then I will decide to contribute how I want to contribute. But imagine if I was leading that project, if I had a team with me, right? And even though I did not know what my role was or what the mandate was, it was my responsibility to figure it out, right? I couldn't just wait for more information to become available because there are others depending on me for that clarity, right? So over time, I have realized that this is part of my job, right? Be dealing with ambiguity. I am not going to have all of the information I need available. I'm not always going to be confident about my recommendations, but as long as it passes the common sense test, I am okay. Like I have to be grounded in that decision. So I want to share with you a few things that I do when I am faced with an ambiguous problem. Right. Number one is the mindset. Like I mentioned, just being okay with it. Right. It usually the common response is stress. Right. Uncertainty leads to stress, but kind of calming yourself down, saying, "This is part of my job." Right. And many other people live through this. Right. A lot of the decisions or a lot of the instructions get top down. They're also leaders kind of dealing with ambiguity and just advocating what they think is the best course. So this really is the norm. That's what I tell myself. This is the job that I am in. This is what I am expected to do. The second thing is, even though the process to solve a problem or which problem statement might not be clear, there is something, a goal that you are working towards, right? Whether it's a maximizing for an outcome or there should be some. This is a goal oriented activity, right? There's somebody is telling you do this to support why, right? Figure out what that is. Figure out what your goal is. Be very clear about that. Then come up with the framework of how you will get to that goal. So I'll give you an example that you are familiar with. Let's say somebody asks you create your roadmap for next year, right? And it could sound like a very ambiguous problem until you find a thread that you can pull on, right? And your thread could be, oh, what are company's goals for next year? Then what do they translate to for the team, right? So what are teams OKR? To meet those key objectives, to meet those objectives, what are some of the problems that we could solve for, right? What would be the impact of those problems? And then let's prioritize based on this specific criteria, right? So this is how you come up with a framework, starting with, okay, working backwards from your goal. So come up with some framework and know that in most cases, there are many, many right answers. There are a few wrong answers, but there are many right answers. There is not one right answer. So as long as it passes the common sense test, right? As long as it is logical, as it is practical, go forward with your framework. Don't wait to like really perfect it or really optimize it. And then the most important thing is start making progress. Let us say if I were to build my roadmap using this framework, I will say, okay, what are the company's priorities? What does it mean for the team? What are the team OKRs based on that? I will start collecting information one by one based on this framework. Right? And as more information becomes available, I will course correct, right? And that's the value of making progress incrementally rather than just waiting to say, "Oh, once I have all of the information, that's when I will get started." That's never going to happen. But start pulling that thread, start working from it from some angle, and eventually the bigger picture will become clear to you. Okay, so you really have to focus on what you know and come up with a structured method, a structured way to make progress. And to be honest, you will find plenty of such opportunities in where you are right now. Right? There are things that might not be very clear, the problems that are not very clear that you can start to tackle, or you can also look at the type of problems your manager solves for. Maybe it's defining an engagement model for the team, or coming up with a change management process, or coming up with the goals for the team for the next year, right? Sit down and try to come up with your own way of how you would solve for that problem, right? What are the assumptions you're making? What's the framework you are proposing? And then validate it with your manager, discuss it with your manager. Tell them that you are trying to get more comfortable with ambiguity, and therefore this was kind of a thought exercise that you thought you would do, right? So find opportunities to apply this skill of defining a goal and kind of figuring out your path towards that goal today, and it will really serve you well in the long term. The fourth skill I want to talk about is decision making. Should we go after customer segment A or B? Should we build or should we buy? Should we go after solving for low hanging fruit or this multi year capability that is high potential? As a product leader, you will be responsible for making some of these decisions. And some of these decisions might seem as high risk because, again, you don't know what the right path is, right? In fact, that somebody once explained to me, that is why it's a decision. If the path was clear, then obviously there wouldn't be a decision. We will take the path that leads to success, right? And and because there is risk associated, decision making can be uncomfortable. Right? Think of your leaders. Think of the people you have worked with. Right? Do you like leaders who dilly dally, or do you like leaders who are decisive, who are willing to take a risk and make a decision? Right? Decision making really is a cornerstone of leadership. Now, I have had managers who have fallen in both buckets. There are those who are less comfortable making a decision, and there are those who are very decisive and really they inspire confidence. I have also been in both of those buckets. Times when I'm like, this is too risky. I either need more information, or maybe I mitigate risk by having my manager make the decision, right? But when I do that, I'm giving my power away. Like, this is my role. This is what I am expected to do, right? And the only way I will learn to do it more, learn to do it better, is by doing it. So over time, even though making a decision sometimes can be unnerving, I'm not always sure, I have learned how to deal with it, how to find my path forward. So, first one is know that the process that you follow for decision making is more important than the end result itself, right? So, stop obsessing about whether it will be A or it will be B. That's secondary. Focus on the process. And the process is actually very similar to the one I talked about when dealing with ambiguity. Be very clear about the goal. What are you optimizing for? And come up with the framework to get there. So, in this case, let us say we are trying to decide between customer segment A or B, right? What is the goal? What is our criteria for making this decision? So, addressable market size, time to build, risks associated to it, competitive positioning. Come up with a list of criteria that you would use to evaluate and make this decision, and then start collecting information, right? And as you get more information, again, you will course correct. The other thing that's important in making a decision is being objective, right? Know that it's very it's rare that you will find a decision which doesn't have risk associated to it, right? So when you're laying out all of these options, also call out the risks so that whatever decision you make, you do that with your eyes wide open, and then make the decision. It is tempting to wait for more information. It is tempting to have somebody else make the decision, but no, this is your role. This is how you grow as a leader. So make the decision. And there is this final step, right? See how that decision plays out, right? Maybe there are times when I have made a decision and a senior leader has changed that, right? What was their thinking? What did I miss? Do a retrospective, and then next time include these things in your process, right? This is how you will learn over time. right? So the key thing that you have to remember, it's not about the decision, it is about the process. Again, as long as it passes the common sense test, you are on the right path. So, how do you do it today? How do you start practicing this in the role you are today? Also, similar to what I had recommended in the ambiguity section, right? There are decisions that your manager is going to make, right? Do some of the homework for them. Instead of giving them the pro con analysis or an evaluation, do that. Like, give them three options. Okay, we are supposed to, this is a problem we are trying to solve for. There are three ways we can do it: A, B, C. These are my criteria for making a decision. This is the evaluation. My recommendation is X, right? Do that work for them. They're still the decision maker, but at least you will work the muscle to kind of, from your perspective, you made a decision and that was your recommendation. It's just your manager needs to sign off on it. So kind of try to make decisions or start making decisions that are above your level, right? And of course, include your manager in the process to get the sign off. But that's the way you will get comfortable with decision making on a larger scale. The fifth and the final skill I want to talk about is thought leadership. Thought leadership is when you think about the bigger picture, right? When you're not really just focused on delivering what's in front of you, but you want to contribute to the industry you are in, or the craft that you are in, product management in this case, or the company and its culture, right? So think about going to a conference where you have speakers, and these speakers have taken their experiences, their learnings, and now they are trying to help others take advantage of that. Or within your organization, you might have product managers who do their day job, but then they also contribute towards creating a hiring process for the company. Or maybe even within the team, they create the processes, for example, change management. These are thought leaders, right? They have taken their own experience and they're trying to now make make life better for someone, right? Either your team, your organization, or the industry as a whole, right? And as you grow in your career, thought leadership becomes super important, right? Because companies want product leaders who care about the bigger picture, who care about the culture, who care about, not just the product, but really the industry, the a company, the culture, and growing and improving all of them, right? So I want to give you an example because I feel like all of us have thought leadership in us. It's a matter of, do we have the courage to share it with others? So here's my example. You go to a meeting, right, and observe. You will see that there are three type of people. There are people who just follow the discussion, right? There are people you kind of know they have something to say, but they are not willing to say it in the meeting. They don't want to take the risk of being wrong. So maybe afterwards they will contact the organizer and say, oh, by the way, there is this idea as well, right? Nothing wrong with it, but they're there. The third one are the people who are like, I have an idea. I'm going to say it in the meeting. Even if I turn out to be wrong, I will just learn something from it, right? The third category of people in that context are the thought leaders, right? They based on their experience, they had an idea, they had an opinion, and they had the courage to go out and share it, even though it might not be correct, right? They just learned something from it, right? And eventually that's the seed need to grow into product leadership. So there are two aspects to it. Number one is, what are you going to be a thought leader in? And you can really pick anything. It could be your industry, for example, payments. If you are in payments, it could be ed tech, whatever industry you are in, if that interests you. It could be product management as a craft, right? Product management is really growing. New product management practices are being established. You could do something there, right? You could do something within your team, how to onboard new product managers, how to create an onboarding buddy program. There are just a lot of opportunities. So it's for you to choose which one speaks to you, which one are you really interested in, and which is where you feel like you have something to share. The second one is to go out and share, right? And this is the difficult one. This is where a lot of people stumble, including myself, right? Because putting yourself out there is a risk. You might get criticized, you might be told you are wrong. The other resistance that several people have to overcome is like, am I an expert in this area? Or there is so much that has already been said about leadership, right? This is just going to be a repeat, right? But you have to know. And this is something I also struggle with. But then somebody gave me this example that there are hundreds of burger joints in the US, and that doesn't stop new burger joints from coming up and being successful. Everybody has different tastes, everybody has different backgrounds, everybody has different principles and different strategies that click with them, right? So sure, if you go out and do a talk, if you write a blog, it might not resonate with everyone, but even if it resonates with a small group, you have made a difference, right? So find an area where you want to be a thought leader, and then find the courage to go out and share your expertise, right? You go on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is just rife for thought leadership today. You can post on social media, you can write blogs, you can do talks. Even like, let's say you are a new recent graduate, you started your role, you have been it in a year, you could write a memo about what you learned, right? That people who are joining after you can learn from. Wherever you are, right? Whatever you have learned, try to distill it and find the courage to share it with others. Maybe start small, share in one-on-one, share in a smaller group, but eventually bring this vision, bring this thought leadership, and help you and your company build a brand on a bigger stage, right? That's also going to be really important for you to be seen as a product leader and to succeed in this role. So, so those were the 5 skills I wanted to talk to you about to become a product leader. And as I mentioned, here is the best thing. You don't have to wait to become a product leader. In fact, the only way you will become a product leader, the only way you will demonstrate that you're ready for this role is if you already start adopting them. So, whatever level you are at today, go out and build these skills. I congratulate you in knowing that this is what you want to do. This is the goal you have set for yourself. You don't have to wait another day. Start working towards that goal. And I wish you all the best for your journey towards becoming a product leader. Thank you.